Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel Kroesen. I'm the partner in EY Netherlands and focusing on indirect tax and also tax technology. I'm happy to be here and yet another session on ViDA. I think everybody maybe almost got ViDA tired after long debates within the European Union on the package itself. So today I do want to set the scene again a little bit, and some of you may have already heard that, but I still think that's good to put the ViDA developments in a bit of a wider context. Then I go into the details of ViDA itself, followed by some examples in some countries, and obviously not in a lot of detail per country, because that probably warrants almost a single webcast on specific country requirements. But it will illustrate the differences that are actually appearing still within the developments of e-invoicing mandates around Europe, which not necessarily make things always easier. Then subsequent to that, I will go into a little bit of detail on terms of what you need to do, how you can approach a project like this, because it can obviously be quite a journey in organizations, because it's not just tax, right? It's finance, it's a finance process, but it's also heavily IT driven. So with that short introduction, I'll go into a bit of details, and then that's interesting because my slides were not moving. That's always interesting. Here you go. Sorry about that. So slides were moving. That was a big test. I failed miserably on a technology session and my slides weren't moving. Anyway, regardless, so global e-invoicing, a bit of the trends. And maybe also to set the scene, because a little bit as well, there are two key developments. And all it's about transparency of data, and there are two main flavors. It's the e-invoicing on one side, and it's on the left-hand side, which is an invoice, sales invoice that has been generated electronically that needs to be submitted through the authorities. There are various models. I'll go in a little bit more detail later on, which obviously has increased adoption throughout the world. And LATAM, for example, was a front-runner region. And we do expect, with ViDA now being approved, that the adoption of e-invoicing will actually also become much higher also in the EU by 2030. I will go into the detail of ViDA and the timelines a little bit later. And on the other side, we have the e-reporting. And e-reporting is not necessarily like invoice-based, but it is a wide variety of different flavors. And we have got SII in Spain, we got SAFTI in some countries. Obviously, we have already e-filing for quite a few decades. So that's actually all kinds of reporting that is not, an e-invoicing in itself, and could contain all kinds of other information. It's good to realize that there are two things still out there, right? And even filing a VAT return is still, for the coming years, going to be mandatory in the EU. So you have not only invoicing, but you also have e-reporting, and you have a VAT return that you're going to need to continue to file for now, which also means you have to make sure that the data between those three data sources are going to be harmonized and reconciled, because you don't want to submit data that actually is different from the other data set that you submitted. But in any event, the trend is that you have to submit more data more frequently to the tax authorities, which allows them obviously to do their tax audits much more efficient. So if we move, and don't worry, we're not going to all these little flags, and there will be no quiz on which flags belongs to which country. But actually, it shows kind of the picture, and it's not even exhaustive, but it kind of shows what's already been happening for quite some time, and also what is going to come up in the years to come. Very near 2006 and 2027, we'll have countries like France and Belgium, for example, moving. The ViDA has a timeline for up to 2030, and then we have all kinds of other countries that are to be expected also in the years to come. So this is not just EU; it's the whole world. It's doing this, and it's actually quite logical. If you think about a tax authorities, instead of going to each individual company to do a tax audit, you can actually, as a tax authority, sit back and review and interrogate data that you've received from all your taxpayers. So you can and link the the different taxes even with each other. So it's here to stay, and we knew that. So ViDA, I actually wrote here on the slide, it's finally arrived, right? And the reason why I emphasize the fact finally, because it's been in the works for quite some time. And maybe from the outset, ViDA it's a wider package. It's not just e-invoicing in e-reporting. It's part of a bigger package. There were two other pillars in ViDA. The second pillar was the single VAT registration and the abolishment of the call of stock simplification, which may lead to less VAT registrations, for example, for movement of own goods. And we have obviously the taxation of the platform companies. I will not go into detail on that particular part of ViDA, but obviously taxation of the platform companies, the e-commerce companies, obviously has always been quite an attention point as well for the European Commission. I think by the fact that they put all those three things together, it took quite a long time before ViDA got approved. And now it's finally here. So in short, relative to today's topic, as of now, there's no longer a derogation required by the European Commission for member states that want to adopt e-invoicing already as a standard. So up to last year, that was still required, but that's no longer required. So member states can choose already, even though the ViDA final deadlines for July 1, 2030 is not there yet, they can still already implement an e-invoicing requirement, for example, for domestic transactions. Per July 2030, what is going to be required? There's going to be a standardized EU e-invoicing for intra-EU transactions. For the same intra-EU transactions, there's going to be a standardized EU e-reporting, that's called the DRR element. The current European sales listings that are still required to be filed today are going to be abolished. And e-invoicing e-reporting for domestic transactions is allowed without approval and based on domestic system that you would like, but it should obviously still meet the EU requirements that have been set by the ViDA regulations. However, countries that already have systems in place are continue to allow their system for domestic transactions until January 2035, which is a bit typical, or typically this is a political agreement. So there's the things in here where you think, well, is that very handy for companies? No, it's definitely not. But they had to do something probably to get countries that already implemented something that obviously they didn't want to abolish that within the next 4 years. So that's why they kind of allow certain member states to keep their current systems in place. So obviously, and we always say that an e-invoice is not a PDF invoice sent by email. That's the old-fashioned way of thinking. E-invoice is going to be the only invoice upon which you can claim your input VAT deduction. It has to be issued within 10 days after the taxable supply. And there could be, and there will be, some additional invoice requirements that are not required today, like the bank account details, but will be in the future. And you know, and obviously, as I said earlier, there's going to be some deviations still possible between the member states in the years to come until up to 2035. So, and maybe also to set the scene for people maybe less familiar with the topic, but e-invoicing impacts obviously quite heavily the business. It's a core business process. Raising an invoice and actually receiving an invoice is obviously part of the core finance process. An e-invoice is a invoice in an electronic format, right? It has to be authentic. It has to be meet the integrity standards, because you have to make sure that the data cannot be altered. And it's not a human readable invoice. It's a machine readable invoice in an XML type format. And what goes along with that is the provision of that data towards the tax authorities in different variations. So then we come back to maybe a little bit more detail on the types of models that are currently at play within the world, but also maybe a little bit close to home in the European Union. Obviously the first main model would be the real-time reporting that we already know in a few countries like Spain. I mentioned the SII reporting. That is typically a model that falls under the real-time reporting. Then you have models like Mexico, KSA, where you actually have a actual clearance model through a government portal. So you raise the invoice towards the portal. Tax authorities have to approve it before it actually goes to the customer. In a centralized exchange model, which for example applies in Italy, the invoice still goes to the government portal, but there's not necessarily a clearance step that the government is making. And then you have the decentralized exchange, which is the model that the ViDA actually should be, is whereby you issue the invoice still to your customer, but that obviously that same information is being exchanged with the government as well, whereby you get a message back that that invoices are actually meeting certain standards. So those models are applied. So the good thing is to understand that these models were applied because they are going to be in coexistence as well until 2035. However, from a pure technology perspective and also from a SEEBURGER perspective, it doesn't really matter. The solutions can all cope with that. Now, very short. I'm not a German tax advisor, and I'm also going to talk very briefly about Belgium. I'm also not a Belgian tax advisor, but I just want to explain a little bit how the rules work. So to kind of illustrate that the rules are the e-invoicing mandates are coming now are actually going to be slightly different in the way things are approached, and countries approach it in a different manner. So Germany, for example, has chosen to have a phased approach. So it is required already as of January 1, 2025 to be able to receive an e-invoice. And obviously as of January 2027, it has to be mandatory required to issue a invoice for domestically established supplier and customers. So it's only for German-based companies. It includes, for example, transactions like self-billing. It includes transactions with small businesses. It also includes travel services. The flat rate scheme is also included in the e-invoicing requirements through a decentralized exchange. So that actually fits the ViDA model. Now, if you look at Belgium, for example, Belgium has not a phased approach. So it's a big bang, January 1, 2026. There is a rule that there's 3 tests that you have to go through to see if you would actually fall under that rule. And maybe it's better explained to the next slide. So you have to, for example, in Belgium, does the supplier have a legal obligation to issue a structured e-invoice? And that actually means that the supplier has to be established in Belgium or has a fixed establishment or a permanent establishment in general tax legislation language. So that's the first test. Does the customer have a legal obligation to accept a structured invoice? That actually means, is the customer required for that specific transaction to use its Belgian VAT ID number? If the answer to that question is yes, then you go to the third test. And then whether the transaction itself triggered a legal obligation to issue a structured electronic invoice. And for example, and to paint the difference between Germany, for example, the flat rate scheme, which is a smaller thing within the VAT legislation, is actually not included in an e-invoice requirement. So they're all different domestic transactions, and the Germans want to have that included, and the Belgians don't want to have that included. So even on transactional level, there are certain things excluded, and those rules are not similar across the EU. And that is also because the ViDA regulations don't necessarily mandate all of that. That also means the second test, that if a foreign entity receives an invoice from a domestically established Belgian customer, but uses Belgian number to receive that invoice, it actually falls under that e-invoicing requirement. In a much broader sense, so what will happen? Because I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, so you will have e-invoice, you have e-reporting, and you have filing a VAT return. So, and I've been saying this for 10 years, so it's a bit strange that I'm saying it again. But in 10 years' time, you would expect that filing a regular VAT return that we are doing today in the EU would no longer be required, because the tax authorities would already have all your data and should be able to predict your payable or receivable position. I know I've been saying this for 10 years. I now really think it's going to happen. So you guys can call on me. I'm not sure I'm taking bets on it, but since I was wrong before, but it is actually important development, because that actually means, and we all know that today when you file a return, you download data, probably put in Excel, you probably fiddle a little bit of data because there are some errors in the data, and then you file a return. That would no longer be possible if you fast forward 10 years, right? So you have to be correct and complete at source. So at the moment you create the transactions and you have a submission requirement, you have to make sure that your data is correct, that it's complete, that it's correctly tax coded, it has the right VAT amounts on it, and stuff like that. So that actually means it is not just about implementing an e-invoicing solution, it's also about upgrading and potentially updating your master data, your EP system. You may have to change things in your EP system as well. I'll come with a few examples in a minute as well, but just make, this is really important thing to remember. So the other point, and actually is that the tax authorities, it is not just an indirect tax development. ViDA is specifically to indirect tax, but sharing data on different types of taxes due to all the transparency developments in the world, and specifically also in the EU, require that companies have to submit much more data. And it's on global trade customs, it's on intrastat, but it's also on transfer pricing with the CBCR, potentially even on the Pillar 2 developments, MDR, where you have to disclose certain tax regimes as you apply. So all that data, and maybe the easiest example is if you look at, for example, transfer pricing, if you submit e-invoicing details for your intercompany transactions, because from an e-invoicing perspective, an e-invoice for intercompany transactions is equally the same as between unrelated parties. So that actually means the tax authorities would have a visibility on your intercompany transactions by the virtue of the VAT rules, which they can then compare whatever you're submitting on a transfer pricing perspective. So matching data between different tax types is also going to be happening. It's already happening in smaller subsets. But imagine a world where the tax authority would have for the whole of the EU all of these transactions of your company, and then think, okay, can they compare? Is there a difference between my corporate income tax return and my VAT return? Probably there is, because there are differences in the way the tax rules apply, but you still have to explain why those differences are there. So our estimation is that you will be faced with more questions in the future on whatever you've submitted. So much more questions, increase on controversy. So it's almost a little bit like, Big Brother is watching you and those kind of things. And I know that sounds very negative. I don't mean it negative, because I think every taxpayer wants to pay the right amount of taxes. But we all know that things still can go wrong within an organization. There are differences in the rules. It's going to be very interesting how this development will go. But I think from a control perspective, and the way you set up your e-invoicing and your e-reporting, is really important that you focus on the details, because all the little differences, they will pop up, will turn up into a bigger thing. I'll do immediately like this because there are too many flying in things. So this is a bit of the, to my earlier point in the previous slide there. So this is the real, like the Big Brother, big data control, where the tax authorities are able to see everything and start interrogate data much more efficiently. So, and when you look at ViDA, and because I mentioned when I explained ViDA, it's technically, when you look at the rules, it only applies to the intra-EU transactions. That's the core focus. But when we look at the Belgian and German rules, for example, actually applies to domestic transactions. And given the fact that ViDA in itself was an anti-fraud measure, and the fraudulent transaction usually happens on domestic sales, not on the intra-EU sales, it's very likely that all member states will impose e-invoicing obligations, not only for the intra-EU transactions, but actually for the but also including the domestic transactions. So, and to a certain extent, that's also easier because a domestic transactions and an intra-EU transaction generally have the same document type in an ERP system, so it would typically be the same type of transaction. The only difference will be a different tax code, for example. So excluding certain transactions out of whatever you need to submit to the tax authority is also a little bit more difficult. So I guess it's ultimately better, easier, but again, we'll be faced with some transitional rules for a while. So I think we do get questions sometimes, or actually more often now since ViDA actually got approved. Is okay, how do you start, and how do we, which people do we need to have in the room? So the way we've done with another client is say, okay, and we started already 1.5 years ago. So okay, we start doing a workshop with the key stakeholders from finance, tax, supply chain, because they were having some issues with master data in that part, customer service, and even legal. And we kind of set an awareness session, go through everything that's going to happen, and also look at the countries that were on an imminent roadmap. We've continued to actually give the clients the legislative updates, and we would expect legislative updates to come in the next 2 years quite often, and then draft a roadmap. Okay, which country is going to go first? What are requirements? Do we fall under the e-invoicing rules in that country? And what are the key decision criteria for a global e-invoicing solution? And because this particular client didn't actually use a lot of different solutions, which is, in our view, not the right way. If you want to make this very efficient project and a process and an implementation phase, it's better to have a global solution. We went through a short list of vendors. We had some separate discussions on some more complicated countries, and now we're actually almost near where the global solution is being chosen, and then we'll go into an implementation phase as well. But I think the key was, okay, we need to make a project plan. We need to have the key stakeholders in the room, so to get buy-in. Because I said it's not just finance or just tax; it's also IT. So you need to secure IT time, but also IT budgets, right? So it's very important to start early. So very short, why it's really important. Yeah, you have to raise an if there are mandatory rules, you have to raise an invoice. If you can't do it, you shut down your business. You can't get your customers to pay you. So it's and apart from any reputational damaging and damage to a relationship with clients, it is obviously important that that there's an operational disruptional item. It's obviously increased audit activity. I already mentioned that, and there are rules. Unfortunately, within VAT always, if you're not compliant with the administrative requirements, there could be penalties, even sometimes penalties technically per invoice that you have issued incorrectly, and maybe risk of over-compliance if you're submitting more data than you're supposed to do. And that is then maybe my final message is that you really have to start today or maybe yesterday, right? Because waiting until new mandates come out, it's a little bit risky, yeah, because it's better to plan ahead. And the reason why we say that is because of the anticipated impact that you will have on your ERP system, because there are things that you're doing manually. For example, manual postings that you do in the finance module, transfer pricing adjustments, maybe big rebate transactions that you do year end or period end. And all those transactions are always, I'm not going into any technical VAT details, but they're always a bit funky. Are they in scope? Are they out scope? Are they related to the underlying transactions? Do I have to refer back to the original transaction? How do I do that? And all these little things, they become now much more visible in an e-invoicing environment. Even things like currency exchange rate. There are certain rules you have to follow, and there are things that are happening in practice, right? But now the tax authority will see what exchange rate you're using. So even the, let's just say, boring stuff, right, becomes really relevant to do this right. And it may require also changes in the ERP system, which actually requires also IT resources. You may also be within an ERP upgrade at the moment. You may move from SAP ECC to S/4HANA, for example. Okay, but that is a project already in itself. How does the new e-invoicing management fit into that program? Do we have to choose something else in the meantime because countries already go live and we have an older ERP system? They're all kind of strategic decisions that you have to take, and it's really better to start planning ahead. And also, at the moment you're doing that, the first couple of countries are usually more complicated. But if you have a single solution, then you also have at least a single way of how the process would work, and then it's easier that all your data issues you resolved in one country. You don't have to redo all the work for the subsequent country, even though there's some localization that still needs to be done. But it's easier if you do it on a single platform, of course. And there's many more exceptions in VAT, and I could bore you all I could all bore you maybe today, but it's really the devil sits in the detail. Standard invoice with VAT is probably not the most exciting ones. I'm a little bit more concerned about all the exceptional stuff that's happening. So that's my call to action today, is to plan ahead, start thinking this through, because it's really important, because it will make your life easier going forward. So that was my ending message. So I would like to give the floor to Andreas.
Thanks, Daniel. Hope everyone can hear me and can see my screen. Okay, I think no complaint. I think you can see my screen. Yeah, hello together, or good afternoon. To my part now, to the SEEBURGER part. What is SEEBURGER as a service provider doing in the world of invoicing, and the second step of ViDA. Let's go to the next slide here. A little bit to myself. My name is Andreas Killinger. I am product manager at SEEBURGER for almost 12 years for the topic of today, e-invoicing, ViDA, and I'm also product manager for our SAP products at SEEBURGER. Some more activities what I have. I am not this typical guy who is consulting or solution manager. My part is to be actually on stage around the world. We are Pferd member. This is actually the membership for the German format, like Zugpferd in this case. We are GINA member. This is will be a part for sure for the ViDA transmission in the nearest future. I'm also a part of the VER, what is Association of Electronic E-Invoices. I have a lot of workshops with e-invoicing international, e-reporting, ViDA, and yeah. In this case, I'm very active since 10 years, almost 10 years. IDST, it's a technical part for Germany, it's a tax part, it's not worldwide. The E-Rechnungsgipfel is the German one of the Exchange Summit, what is worldwide. So Exchange Summit and E-Rechnungsgipfel, I will be there in like roundtables, like, yeah, everything what is possible. You see me in the middle of the screen here. This is my part. The next one will be for the German mandate. I will do it in Miami. Then we are invoicing user group, tax voice, we are members, PEPL community, I'm involved, and we have a lot of partnerships, and also I'm administrator for the DSAG, this is German user group, SAP user group, and I'm also a partner manager for SAP. This is my part during the day. So let's go to the agenda. I will do a small company introduction. I'm not sure everybody knows SEEBURGER, upcoming mandates, global invoicing service, what does SEEBURGER actually do it, and then some ViDA service, I would say possible ViDA service. We are still quite early from the time here to have really finished service, because yeah, Daniel explained it before deep enough. Okay, company introduction. We are born 1986. We are almost 40 years old. We are independent. We are really global around the world, everywhere. I will show in the next slide. We have around about 1,200 employees worldwide. The biggest part is in Germany. We are a German company in this case. We have 14,000 customers worldwide. We have cover a lot of industries, branch, and so on. We have one platform. The one platform I will explain a little bit later with our slides. We cover all integration topics. Yeah, we have 20 years of cloud experience, and this is very important for invoice parts of topics or ViDA topics and so on. We have 3 cloud data center locations. Germany, USA, and China. Germany runs in Karlsruhe. Everything that has to do with the invoicing and in the future with ViDA will run in Germany. Yeah, and we are globally doing support, consulting, and so on. You can see we're really worldwide here. And we are in North America. We are, most of them for sure, it's in Europe, and in Asia we are as well. And yeah, we can cover a lot of. Yeah, this is our core, what we can cover. We do MFT, like managed file transfer. We do B2B ETI, what is e-invoicing and everything what has to do with EDI and so on. EAI and A2A, it's not so my part, but we cover this as well. API is for sure also a part of e-invoicing for sure. IoT, very interesting topic. Automation, it's our part, and we name this everything together. It's our BIS platform, BIS, Business Integration Suite, Business Integration Server. I will show you later how it looks like a little bit for this time what I have. Yeah, we cover a lot of branch. I told you already, this is just an example. You can see it's an extract. We are everywhere. We can help you in all branches. And this is a small screenshot of our customers, what we have. Could be that here in the call will be some of these small pictures here. This would be great for sure. Upcoming e-invoices mandate. I told you already, the technical part is not so deep mind, but for me it's important for the important part for a lot of our customers, because this slide is changing quite often overnight. We got any news from Croatia, we got any news from Norway. This not every night, this was this week, but for us very important to check this, what is coming up with Croatia. Okay, Croatia has already B2G mandate, now it's coming with B2B in 26. Yeah, I have to check what is behind for all country. Yeah, what is the need? What is the format? What is the XML structure? What does it mean for our customers? What is the platform? Sorry, and so on and so on. We are also very on the way to get the PDP certification for France. It is hard and a long ride, and for sure currently is a German mandate on the right now. Is the German mandate for inbound since January, or since 1st of January this year, and the next 2 years we are really in stress with the German mandate number 2, what is for outbound, and this is in 2027. My message here is also same like Daniel before. I don't know where all your location you have, where you have a VAT ID, where you are registered, you have to do B2B invoices in the nearest future. The time is really ticking. If you have, this morning I had a customer with five locations in these countries, what you can see here, they really will have stress in 26 and 27, and actually you should start in 25 to prepare your system, you prepare what kind of service provider you will take, and so on. Don't wait too long, really don't wait too long. We have probably a waiting time to start projects up to 12 weeks because of too many mandates what is coming up. It's better you be prepared in time and not wait. Yeah, what we say in Germany, oh, it's already Christmas again, then it's too late. Yeah, this is my message. I'm not going too deep in this. Global invoicing service from SEEBURGER. Yes, yeah, I told you we were born in 1996, 1968, sorry, 1968, and we are doing the invoices before there was any mandate by the EU Directive 2040-55. We are doing longer. We are doing an EDI invoice, yeah, or EDI. Anything that has to do with EDI and invoicing is a part of this. We are cover Europe, and don't worry, not everything is a mandate here, but Czech Republic, for example, it's still an EDI process, and yeah, but some countries are already in the B2B mandate, like Hungary, for example. Belgium's coming up soon. Italy, we do it with almost 200 projects in the past, and so on and so on. We are also outside of Europe on way. This is Australia, Canada, India. There is also no mandate, and then it's not a service, but then this is an integration and a personalized integration project with our customers. We can do that as well. And if it makes sense to put it later in a service, then we will do outside of Europe. We put it in the service like Mexico, in the service catalog like Mexico as well. We will see what coming up the next time. We are also, you see this red bubble here, we are also certified Pebble access point provider, inbound, outbound with partner directory. So what means for upcoming mandates like Belgium what is soon, or Germany, we can also cover with service because there is Belgium will be Pebble required, and we can help our customer with this. Important is the message, SEEBURGER is a cloud partner. We do everything what has to do with e-invoicing. We do it actually to 99% in our cloud service because this is very easier to maintain. There are a lot of changes. I see it here in Germany. I see it right now in Poland. There is a new format what is coming up, and for us it's very much better to handle this in our cloud world or our cloud area here. It's also better to connect to the tax authorities, to other business partners, and so on. Also, we can handle the status response from some authorities or business partner. The general message, once again, is cloud, and I think this is more or less standard in the world. And and I think it's going on in the future as well. So this is our technical outbound process. We actually do everything apart from the in-house data extract from your company, from your ERP system, from your FI system, finance system, whatever. We take your data, and then we are in our SEEBURGER world. Sorry, we are in our SEEBURGER world, and then we produce first one. We can name it C invoice or C XML, C order, whatever. It's the current word in this case. We name it process mapping, and then finally we go in our partner mappings. But don't worry, we're not taking one C XML or one data extract and put it in 16 other countries. Now we will not do that. This is a one-to-one connection, and then all is good. No worry. Between partner mapping and process mapping, we have running a report. So with this report, we are able to create a PDF visualization. It is a PDF and not an invoicing according EN 6901. It is a visualization. It helps, for example, for an X-Rechnung in Germany to have, you can read it. XML structure, maybe you can not read it. So if we are done, then we have to check communication, where the travel goes. We are working together with local providers. This is China, what I mentioned before. So we are working together with other providers. This is an example, it's Portugal or it's Denmark, for example. It's needed, and we must do it. The second one is B2B portals. This is a kind of Germany currently. There is no portal between, still no portal between. If ViDA coming up, it's the next one. B2B portal is if big companies of us send Zugfeld-X-Rechnung to a company portal, we can do that. It's depend on what communication service there is behind. Public portal, it can be like SDI, Italy. It can be like Poland, for example. These are public portals. We can cover this. Oh, I mentioned already Pebble access point we have for Belgium next year. It's coming up to B2B mandate. We can cover it as well. Okay, our communication service is able to connect everywhere. Sorry. Do we get a response? Then we make a decision during the project phase. What happened? Should we send it back to your ERP system? Should we put it in an email? We will see discussion during a project. Then this we will see. Service means we have to cover everything what has to do with e-invoicing. Also, is it an archiving service would be included or is included. It's not a must be. You can make the decision to do the archiving with SEEBURGER or not. It's up to you. We have the possibility, we put everything in this archiving box. We don't have access anymore after the archiving process. You will get user access. You can take the invoice or the required documents in for each country, and you can download it again if you want to. But don't forget, if you download it from the system, an invoice, then you have a copy of an invoice. The original invoice will always be on place. You cannot have a 2 times a 1 invoice. The second one will be a copy. But you can also put, or we can also put the data here, the documents. We can put it to you to another location, storage location. You have already one, or we connect somewhere in your ERP system if there is a possibility. How does it look like in real? You see here, monitoring is not a real. It's not actually the real part. We name it message tracking, and message tracking, it's hopefully coming up soon. Yes, we have it here. It's a paper message, for example. How it looks like is successful. When we go to details, I sent it out right before. Here are all the technical informations. Here are the attachments, like the source code. Here will be the target view, for example. You can see it. This is the visualization of the PDF. It's just a report what is behind. This is not an original invoice. It is just a visualization so that you can check it how it looks like. By the way, in Germany, it's really helpful because the transmission of the invoice would be via email still, and we will see everything behind is also available. I told this from the CXML. What is this? What is the C invoice in this case? You can everything download if you want to. This is just a short part to how really looks like this monitoring here in reality. This is a demo system for sure. It was not original invoice, but sometimes customers are really interesting to see how it's really looks like. We also cover inbound. Then it's the opposite way. Local provider, depend on B2B portals, public portals, PEPL, we can receive everything. Then it's the opposite way. If we receive the partner invoice, and then we do the partner mapping, and the second way, the process mapping. And then by the end, we can communicate in your in-house format or send it in your in-house format to your company. It is FSOP, it can be an IDOC, and yeah. What we not do is here to check the workflow. Is this everything valid? Is this we don't check it against the order, the invoice? This is not our part. This must happen here in your ERP, in your finance system, on your here on your company side in this case. Also, archiving would be possible here if you want to. Also, we can send the data to your ERP system as well. So once together, time is ticking. Once again, we are able to connect in all ERP systems. We are also go to SAP, whatever Navision, it's not a problem. Our global invoicing framework is working. Yeah, what means we have still half of Europe doesn't announce anything. There are so many countries they didn't see anything, and we are close to ViDA. So what means coming up Sweden, for example, Netherlands, Luxembourg, they have still no B2B mandate. We are growing. It's getting more and more, and we will see what system or what transfer medium they will use. We are prepared in this case. We have also an automatic exchange. That's what I told you is a format change, a small one. We will do it in the cloud in the background. Customers will not be has not to do anything. We will do it. The cloud, I already explained. Invoice monitoring, we have it outside of our solution for SAP or not SAP as well. We have a compliance check, what is really important for Germany soon, because EDI is also also allowed to use for the German mandate, but it must be conform EN 6931. If it's an EDI process, what is 10 years ago, for sure there will not be EN 6931 conform, and so that we need the compliance check. Legal archiving, it's legal what we do. And then audit trail right now, I showed you right in the demo system before. Yes, let me do a little bit possible ViDA service at SEEBURGER. One is for sure, ViDA is on the way. In November was by the ECOFIN, European Commission for Finance, was the approval of all EU countries that they can now going on. It was November 4th or 5th, I'm not sure, anything, beginning of November, and now starts actually the process. I'm a member of a ViDA. I told you that we try to influence our German finance ministry. We have a draft document sent to them. How should be for Germany the tax declaration, the upcoming ViDA process, and we will get the information from the German finance ministry end of February. But for sure, in Germany we have currently some elections, and the process can maybe, your decision can maybe a little bit later. Nobody knows it. Okay, yeah, we have the transfer of the ViDA data. It's for us quite easy. We have, depending on how it looks like, Belgium, for example, for sure it will be PEPAL. It will run over the PEPAL network. What is PEPAL? You can see it here again. We have the four-corner model, and this is the PEPAL network, but also interoperability, like with Gina, could be also a four-corner model. It's depend on. I'm not going too deep because the time is ticking. Four-corner model means you have two access points and you have the sender and the receiver. Between you have the partner register. There you will find your customers, your partner, your supplier, everything. They are registered in the partner register. We have also an own partner register here at SEEBURGER, so we can really 100% cover any requests from our customer side. This is an example for the German reporting part in the nearest future. Yeah, we are currently in 2025 and the same will be more or less in 2028, sorry, 2027 for outbound. And we are currently waiting how will be the reporting process for a ViDA report to the tax authority. But the message will be we have the toolbox at SEEBURGER side. We have everything. We are prepared to do the ViDA reporting or the tax reporting to the required authority or to the central platform. We have everything. We will do it with our CXML. If you remember C-invoice, from this point we are able to contact the tax authority. So this is the process, what is coming up maybe in 2030, maybe a little bit earlier, we will see. With a five-corner model via ViDA, I was last year several times in Belgium and informed me how it could look like for the ViDA reporting in 2030. This is a five-corner model. In this case, the four-corner model explained there is a customer and a supplier, and there are the access points between, and if the next corner model, in this case, the next corner would be number 5. This would be the tax authority or the platform, however everything will named it. This is still open. Sorry, and we can cover this with our global invoicing. We are already doing the preparation, how the mapping looks like, how it would be, but the description is still not there. We don't know all the field what is required. We are still at the beginning, but we will cover the ViDA transfer in the nearest future. How could it look like? It is in draft. You see it is in draft. How it could look like for Belgium and Germany. Maybe you remember on the slide from before. We must do here a split when the C invoicing is coming, so we get your invoice data, then we do the C invoicing, then we do the standard transfer. In this case, we would choose PEPAL. We do the standard partner mapping in the UBL, which could be BIS Billing 3.0 or X-Rechnung, depend on when it goes to our business partner, and then we will stop the process here, not stop, but this is a parallel process. We will create in the process mapping, the ViDA reporting communication, maybe also via PEPAL. This is what I would prefer. You see it. I'm really a friend of PEPAL. We will see. And if there are any response, but currently nobody doesn't know, is it positive or not, we will handle this for sure as well. Yeah, we are another 2-4 minutes. How can SEEBURGER can help you? The trend with continuous transaction is unstoppable. Everybody knows that. We are just waiting that the other 10-12 European countries announced any e-invoicing mandates. And the invoicing mandates is the step before ViDA, and all countries must be in remove paper and PDF, and then they must go to the technical structure. This morning, I cut the invoice. Can I use the Spain invoice also for France invoice? To this point, every country requires different standards. If it's not PayPal, then we have a lot of difference with the standards, so you cannot use the same structure for every country. Yeah. CTC and ViDA required a ageable, flexible solution to cover current and future requirements. SEEBURGER is doing that. We are doing already mandates since 2014, and we can cover SAP and all other solution extension with our adapters as well. The plus 500 project, I think this is it's not really the nice figure. I think we have more than 1,000 projects. Doesn't matter what kind. It starts with Italy, and we start with Hungary, and then it's continue a lot of B2G countries, and so on. I told you SEEBURGER in general runs for invoicing in the cloud, but in general we for sure we runs on premise or we runs hybrid. What would be hybrid? Hybrid could be, for example, when you use PayPal, but you would like to do PayPal in your house, but the PayPal access point is at SEEBURGER house. Then what means then you have a mixed project, so you can have your own on-premise solution, and then you send the invoice to our PayPal access point. This would be the hybrid format, for example. And also the invoice is just the beginning. This is what I learned at the last Exchange Summit from a big company. They are already at the e-order, e-delivery documents, everything. This is after e-invoicing comes the next formats on the way. Yes, I am done with my part. I guess anybody is taking over the
Yes.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's the control center here, and I have received some questions. So as we are quite short in time here, let's just jump into them. By the way, thanks for a good session, both Daniel and Andreas. I think this question maybe, yeah, let's try with you, Daniel. What would you consider to be the largest challenge for businesses when implementing an invoicing mandate? Don't forget to unmute, Daniel. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. So, and I'll answer it from a more of a technical background, so not so much from an IT background. And I think I tried to explain it also in the presentation. So I think that the biggest challenge is to deal with the deviations and the different rules per member state, because for some weird or maybe disappointing reason, member states were not able to come to a harmonized system. It's same as the harmonization of the invoice requirements many years ago. I think it's rather disappointing, but it also makes the implementation much more challenging and much more difficult, because you have to deal still with all the local different rules and also the interpretation of those rules, which also may increase also the risk of audits and controversy. So that would be, for me, the largest challenge.
Okay. Thank you. Good. I think I think you touched this, Daniel. So let's take it. Who should own the project internally? And tax, finance, or IT? And I think you covered it, but maybe you can just evaluate that a little bit.
Yeah, and not know exactly the full audience. So I'm not sure if I'm stepping on any toes when answering that question. But so it starts with tax regulation, right? But it's so embedded in a core business process, which is the raising of a sales invoice. I think it should be owned by finance, heavily supported by IT, and tax, right? So tax needs to make sure that the regulations are followed, and if it goes wrong, it ends up in a tax risk. But I don't think the tax department should be the department that actually owns the full project, because I think it's so much embedded in the business. Someone else should take care of the PMO and make sure that things are taken into account from all angles, and should be really finance that drives that.
Good, thank you. And great. Now this for Andreas. I think, yeah, this will be an interesting one. How much preparation time should you plan for an e-invoicing project per country?
Oh, this is always a good question. I think I mentioned already during my presentation. It is the beginning of the year like now. Then it is still good. We can handle with 6 or 8 weeks. But if it's close to a mandate and you have more than one country to cover, then you really should a quarter year to be prepared before we switched to go live moment. I would say, yeah, that's depend on this. It's after the summer break. Really, it's really a hard one when it goes to end of the year.
All right, some urgency there. Thanks. All right, I think we stopped there with questions. We will reach out to any of you who has any further questions here and reply to them because, yeah, based on the too respectful of time here. Guus, I think you had some final remarks.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, okay, well, again, yeah, it goes like it goes when it's all virtual. But anyway, so no, just as a message sent to the audience. We have also our ideas on some kind of next steps. So we're thinking of organizing also, let's say, a session more, let's say, close to home. So with an audience, some kind of an afternoon session somewhere in April. And we will reach out to you. And again, if you think you are interested to attend such a session where we can kind of face-to-face meeting with SEEBURGER and EY, that would be also okay. And getting the information we will share with you. We will send the documents, and perhaps you can fill in the feedback. And after this is also the email addresses which you can reach out if you also, for example, have additional questions or if you want to attend also this session in April.